Om Sadashiva-Samarambam Shankaracharya-Madhyam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavirya Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishayahi. Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti Shanti.
The Mangalacharanam for the Tattva Bodha. Vasudevendra Yogendram Mumukshunartaya Vabodho Vidiyate. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yes. So we have just entered the text in the last class, and we did the introductory verses, which talked about what was the subject matter of the text, what is the benefits the text is directed at, and so on. Does anyone remember what is the benefit the text is meant for?
Moksha sadhana bhutam.
Correct. Right, so now we will continue with the text on the page 2 of your document. This is the second verse. I will chant and you can repeat. You ready? Sadhana Chatustayam Kim.
Sadhana Chaturshreshtha Kim.
Nitya Nitya Vastu Vivekaha.
Nitya Vastu
Vivekaha.
Iha Mutrartha Palabhoga Viragaha.
Iha Mutra
Shama Adi Shatka Sampattihi.
Shama Sampatti
Mumukshutvam Cheti.
Mumukshutra Chetehi.
So you'll notice that this whole text is in question and answer format. So I think some of you might have gotten a bit overwhelmed with the last verse, but it was just a introductory verse that we did in the last class. And now we will, in question and answer format, explain all of them in a lot of detail. So this is how Shastric texts often go. The questions are raised by the student in the text. And this will often be the questions that real life students would have, and then the text themselves will answer it. So here the student asks, Sadhana Chatushtayam Kim? What is the fourfold qualifications for attaining this Atma Jnanam? So, and the author right now just lists out what those qualifications are. Someone is saying they cannot hear me. Can everyone else hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Nagrajji, I think it might be something to do. Maybe you can try log back in. Yes. So coming back, the first one, the author is just listing out what are the fourfold qualifications. And the first one is Vivekaha. Nitya Anitya Vastu Vivekaha, which means the discriminative knowledge between what is Nityam and what is Anityam. Nityam is that which is permanent, and Anityam is that which is impermanent. So once again, we will have an exhaustive discussion on each of these. Right now, I'm giving an overview. of what the 4 qualifications are. So we will talk about what is Nityam and what is Anityam, because the author here actually hasn't specified, right? But discriminative knowledge or clarity of thinking is basically a virtue which will serve us not just in this pursuit of moksha, but will serve us in any aspect in life. Shankaracharya says clear thinking is the primary ornament for a human being. In fact, he wrote 580 verses in Viveka Chudamani, talking about how this is the jewel, the primary jewel for a human being. Now, we have to be careful to separate Viveka from the word discrimination, which is generally used in a negative sense in the world today. And this is why we, have texts like Tattva Bodha to refine the understanding of all the words we use. And once you really understand what Viveka means, it's better to think of it as Viveka than discrimination in your head. So the word discrimination in the world today is used often in a negative sense, in the sense of racial discrimination or gender discrimination. What we're talking about is more of a discernment. It's discrimination in a very positive sense. What will serve me and what will not? What will give me eternal, absolute happiness and what is riddled with defects? We talked about the defects that Vishayananda is riddled with, the 3 doshas, the Dukkha Mishri Tattvam, that there is all this pleasure is always mixed with pain, Atripti Karatvam, that this particular happiness from external objects will never completely satisfy me. And third, bandhakatvam, this kind of externally dependent happiness will also bind me. So we're talking about discrimination between these, the discrimination between what will give me Vishayananda and what will give me Vidyananda. And what is this Viveka needed for exactly? It is needed for Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. So it's required for discernment between what is the permanent and what is the impermanent. So we'll talk about this more. The second one is Vairagya, Viragaha. The author says, Iha amutrartha phalaboga viragaha. So viragaha can be simply translated as dispassion. So the author is saying dispassion from fruits of actions here or in a future point or world. So I'll explain again what that means. For now, viragaha, raga means attachment, longing. Being free from that is viragaha. So basically freedom from all types of addictions, emotional bondages, or hooks in life is what viragaha or dispassion means. The third is Shama Adi Shatka Sampattihi, which means the 6-fold discipline beginning with Shama. So the author is actually sneaking in 6 disciplines in this one. And Shama itself means mind discipline. Adi means etc. Sampatti is wealth. So the scriptures consider inner wealth as the most crucial. And inner wealth is self-discipline. Then he says cheti, cha iti, this is just a conjunction. And the 4th one is mumukshutvam, which is desire for moksha. Now, this desire for moksha cannot be created. It's a person's frame of mind, which they arrive at in a natural due course of time. When one feels ready to claim their highest nature and to reject clinging to things which are impermanent, Then they arrive at this frame of mind. The mumukshutvam itself refers to the state of mind, and mumukshu is one who has the state of mind. This is what also differentiates someone studying Vedanta because they're curious about what Vedanta has to say, or they're actually desiring the end result that Vedanta promises. That is the qualification that is being talked about. We can also, for simplicity's sake, if you like, you can try to remember these as the 4 Ds: discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. Yeah. Then we will explain all these in detail now. But these 4 together is what's called, someone who has all these 4 is said to be a Sadhana Chatustaya Sampanna. Or they're said to have Chitta Shuddhi, which means purity of mind. Now on your second page, the last verse, again, you can repeat after me. Nitya anitya vastu vivekah kaha kaha.
Vivekah kaham.
Nitya vastu ekam brahma. Yadvatiriktam sarvam anityam. Thank you. So, of course, the author didn't really tell us what is Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. So the student asks, what is this Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka? And what do you mean by the discrimination between the permanent thing and the impermanent thing? And so, first of all, the student might be confused. Is there even such a thing which is permanent? So far, that everything that we have seen, that everything that we've come across in this life is impermanent. There are certainly few things which are relatively permanent, like the sun, the stars, which will live for millions of years. But we know that these too die. You might remember learning about supernova explosions when you were in school. This is when the star reaches the end of a very, very long life, and there is this brilliant explosion in the space, which is called a supernova explosion. So even things which are relatively impermanent, like the sun and the stars, relatively permanent, like the sun and the stars, also die. Let's come back to looking at the Purusharthas. I hope you remember what they are. What were Purusharthas?
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Chaturvedha.
Great. And so the first was Artha, which means security. So what does it mean to have Artha as a goal in life? So we said Artha, the security could be in the form of career, family, many things, right? Now let's consider this. Are you seeking security, or are you seeking freedom from insecurity? It is a very important distinction. Say you have a problem walking because your legs are weak right now because of some issue. Crutches will help you feel more secure. So you could get some crutches to help you with that. But what do you actually desire? Do you desire crutches, or do you desire the ability to be able to walk on your own 2 feet? Obviously, the latter, correct? So like this, there are many crutches that we use. Money, fame, family. There is nothing right or wrong about wanting any of these things. We are simply trying to understand the psychology of what's happening here. The psychology of what's happening here is when we are seeking artha, security, we are actually seeking moksha from insecurity. Similarly, let's look at kama, pleasure. When we are seeking happiness, are we seeking happiness, or are we seeking to be a happy person? Because happiness is not really a thing, is it? It's not the same thing which could make one person happy would make another person unhappy. It's not the same things which make people happy. So again, there is no such thing as happiness. What we are seeking is to be a happy person. So again, when we are saying we are seeking karma, we are seeking moksha from unhappiness. Now we could do the same analysis with dharma. If you are doing good deeds for punyam, for some kind of result or heaven later, what will actually happen when you reach heaven? You will still have the same mindset, and anything you enjoy there will be subject to the same doshas that we just talked about. I could also say, okay, you can drop this body right now and go to heaven today. And most people will say, oh, okay, no, not right now. Maybe give me another 10 years or 20 years, and then I'll go. So that's also not the ultimate goal. You can start with any purushartha, dharma, artha, kama, and you will end up with moksha. This is part of viveka. So we must inquire, if I'm seeking security or happiness, is it because I think I'm an insecure or unhappy person? Is that the correct conclusion, to think I'm insecure or unhappy? Shastra tells us that this is because of confusion. Confusion makes me think that I'm a limited being, that I am this temporary body and mind. For sure, if I was just this body, then I do have a reason to be insecure, because this body is fragile. It can get hurt, it can fall sick, it will die. An inquiry into this confusion is called viveka. If there was no confusion, we would simply call it vichara, which means inquiry. But viveka is also inquiry, but an inquiry when there is confusion. What exactly do we inquire into? Shastra tells us that there must be an inquiry into what is permanent and what is impermanent. And nitya vastu ekam brahma. The scriptures tells us that thankfully there is at least one permanent thing. Actually, it is the only permanent thing. That is Brahman. That is you. Brahma means infinitely big or limitless entity. Brah means big. Brahma, the biggest thing. Infinite. Infinite would mean it is free from the limitations of space or time. And take this human body, for example. I can only be here, not anywhere else in a particular. So I'm limited in space. This body only exists from one period, that is date of birth to date of death. So it's limited in time. So everything like this, everything else in this world which is impermanent is limited in time and space. Tad vyatiriktam sarvam anityam. So other than this Brahman, everything else is impermanent. But Brahman is permanent, eternal, and also not limited by space. So when we say everything is impermanent, what does it mean? That means all people, all situations, whether they are good situations or bad situations, all experiences, all objects, all of these are impermanent. Once again, there is nothing wrong in enjoying impermanent objects. The problem only occurs when I think I want this to last forever, because that is impractical. It's not going to happen. Therefore, a spiritual person or an intelligent person is one who understands that emotional dependence on an unstable world is risky. Therefore, they decide to turn their attention away from the impermanent to the permanent. You understand that permanent happiness and permanent security cannot come from an impermanent thing. Seems logical, yeah? So when you see this clearly, you will use the world only for one purpose, to discover the permanent. Now, how can you achieve something which is permanent and infinite? By spiritual practices, will you get Brahman? Will you become Brahman? By the very definition of permanent, it means it must have always been. There is actually nothing you can do to become infinite or permanent, because logic says finite actions can only produce finite results. So how is this possible? It would only be possible if you already were that. So it's not a becoming we're aspiring to. It's only a knowing, an understanding of what I already am. This self-knowledge is moksha. So, and the next verse says, I will just take the verse and then we can take questions. Ayameva nitya nitya vastu vivekaha. So nothing complicated here. It just says, Ayameva, this alone is the discernment between what is nitya and anitya. This is viveka. That's what the verse says. So any questions about viveka? What is discernment or discrimination? Okay, then we can proceed. On your page 3, the third verse. Viragaha kaha.
Viragaha kaha.
Iha swarga bhogeshu. Icharahitam. So the student now asks, what is this second qualification? What is viraga? What is dispassion? And the author says, Iha swarga bhogeshu icharahitam. Iha means here, right now, and swargam is heaven. Bhogeshu means enjoyment. Ichcha means desire. Rahitam means the lack of. So having an absence of desire from fruits of action in this world or a future world or heaven or a future time. So we already said that any finite action can only produce finite result or fruit. So viraga means the absence of raga or longing for the fruits. It also implies the absence of the opposite, which is dvesha. You might have heard the term raga dvesha. Dvesha means aversion. Raga and dvesha are not simply desire and aversion, though. They are binding desires and binding aversion. We're talking about attaching an excessive value to something beyond objectivity. And what was objectivity? That was viveka. So if you have this genuine inquiry, genuine discernment, then vairagya will naturally flow as a result of viveka. So, for example, what is this objectivity we're talking about on attaching excessive value to something beyond objectivity? A desire for food is real, correct? So, because we feel hunger. And it's objective to say that food will satiate hunger. So you can eat to maintain this body, that's good. But what if you say, I live to eat, food is my comfort? You will ruin this very same body that the food is meant to nurture. That's when food has become a binding desire. Similarly, there can be a desire for several things, but all those desires must be understood. All the desires that we have must be inquired into and understood. Are they binding desires or are they non-binding? If the desires you have are non-binding, then there is vairagyam there. If it's binding, that's when it becomes dangerous. It means you've attached an excessive value to it. This is something which might make you think, without this, my life will be empty, or I cannot live without this. Books and movies propagate this romantic idea, don't they? That when you truly love someone, you cannot live without them. You could be talking about romantic partner or a parent-child relationship. But is that really true? Feeling like this, is that really love or is it attachment? Could anyone venture a guess as to what could be the difference between what we call love and attachment?
That would be attachment, because you're not giving the freedom to the other person to move away. And if you love someone, you let them be.
Correct. So what would one want in love, and how would it be different from attachment? They will be.
So in love, we want our partners to be happy. In attachment, we are a little more selfish, where we put us above the other person.
Right. So we can say love is selfless and attachment is selfish. What else?
Love is independent and attachment is dependent. You become dependent on that person.
Very good. So love is a sign of independence, freedom, and attachment is a sign of dependence. What else?
Attachment is more about ourselves. Like it's attachment is with I,
Mm-hmm.
and love is about we. Is what I feel.
I see.
It's also a sense of freedom.
Correct. Freedom.
Yes, attachment would bind us. Love would free us.
Perfect. So I'm hearing freedom and binding quite a bit. What about conditionality? Is love conditional?
Love would be unconditional.
No.
Attachment would be conditional.
Right. So by all these definitions, are we capable of this love? Do we really display this love in our life right now with the people in our life? Or are we attached to the people in our life right now? Or do we truly love them?
I feel that it is really difficult to attain that kind of freedom and detached yet loving compassionately. I mean, these will seem to be jargons till we really see that oneness among everyone. If it is that love, probably that love will flow for everyone, not for one person.
Yeah.
Until that time, it will be, if we are seeing, I'm loving my parents. So if we go deeper down, we will see even to our parents, we are loving to for our means. Like that touch that my mom can give, no one else can give me. That touch, for that I'm craving for her. For that I'm loving her.
Yeah.
So even that is attachment. I don't think so. Even that is a selfless love.
That is
So
true, Kathy. So it's a kind of a difficult realization and a hard realization. But then when we really inquire into it, we look at all the people in our life we think we love the most, we will find that we are mostly operating out of attachment. There might be moments of unconditional love, moments only, but there are probably very few, if any, relationship in our life where we are capable of completely unconditional love. At most, if you look at relationship in the world today, it could be the love that a mother has for the newborn baby in the very first few days or weeks before, where the baby is not even opened the eyes, can't even look at the mother or recognize her, but still the mother loves this baby, right? But that soon, even their anticipations will soon start. The mother will want the baby to recognize her, to smile at her, and expectations build up. And soon that love also becomes conditional. It's a kind of a jarring thing to hear, but that's true. And Kathy did make a very good point because of it's only when we see the oneness that we will be able to be capable of unconditional love. Because what does it mean? If I can love without conditions one person, that means I can also love everyone else and everything else, correct? Because
But will not that kind of unconditional love get us into trouble sometimes?
not, I mean, once you're capable of it, I don't think it would get you into trouble.
Okay.
That's what we say a jnani is capable of, an enlightened person is capable of. But all we can aspire to right now is to create moments of this unconditional love for the people in our life as a way to. So when you think, when a loved one is away from you and you think, I miss them. I actually thought this once, and then I went and looked up the word miss, and it said thinking of someone with longing or sadness. Why should something you love make you sad? Right? So it should be an object of joy for you, correct? So it's never love which can cause sadness. It's only the attachment which can cause sadness or suffering. So vairagyam is freedom from attachment. That's what we're talking about. So when we say unattached or detached in English, it sounds very cold. But like we just explained, we're not saying a yogi cannot love. In fact, a yogi is capable of an immense amount of love. He is filled with love looking at just a flower. The yogi simply does not suffer from attachment. It means he does not think his happiness is dependent on that particular object or person. There is nothing he seeks from the other. And this gives the freedom to simply love, to simply give out of fullness. Now, that is the vairagyam, the detachment that we're talking about. And like we said, it stems from viveka. There is objectivity, and when there is objectivity, the mind is also free to pursue moksha. Vairagyam doesn't require us to turn away from anything or renounce everything, because it won't even work actually. When you turn away from something, you continue to carry it with you. You continue to think about that thing, obsess about that thing. So instead, we need to simply aim to have objectivity. When vairagyam is there, every pursuit in life, be it career or marriage, can all become yoga. A healthy attitude for all of us to have is the ephemeral world, the transient world, should not be looked upon as the ultimate goal of life, because of the simple reason that it is ephemeral, it is fleeting, it is perishable. It does not mean that the ephemeral should be rejected. Use the ephemeral as the means, the ladder for attaining the eternal, which alone can give you that lasting peace and happiness. I like this example I heard Raviji use once. If you ask a man and a woman who are about to get married, and why are you getting married? The man will say, because I want to be happy. You ask the woman, why are you getting married? She'll say, because I want to be happy. Aren't these like two beggars walking around with begging bowls saying, give me happiness? What will these two beggars give each other? If marriage is seen as an end, it is doomed to fail. But marriage or any other pursuit in life can instead be seen as the means towards moksha. It is actually one of the marriage vows in our 7 vows in the Indian culture, that I will walk with you on this path towards moksha. So if any of our other pursuits in life, which are all, we recognize them as impermanent and we use them as the means to achieve the permanent, that's when we are managing to have sufficient amount of vairagyam. In the end, some desire is necessary and useful even. Otherwise, we would not get up and do anything. We would not come to this class. It's only binding desires which have to be converted to non-binding. Now, desires can be dharmic, righteous, or adharmic. So which are okay? It is obviously adharmic desires are not even being addressed here, because it's obvious that to come to spiritual life, one needs to let go of adharmic desires. But then what do you do with all your other desires? Shastra says that all legitimate sense pleasures are allowed in scriptures, as long as you're not harming anyone else. Just you can enjoy any legitimate sense pleasures, but they come with a warning that none of them can be the ultimate goal in life, because they're all perishable. So whatever desires that you observe within yourself, what do you do with them? First, don't judge. It's okay to critique, but never criticize. You're Brahman after all. So if it's a dharmic, yes, it's okay to suppress. If it's dharmic, go ahead, but keep that inquiry alive and make sure it doesn't take you away from your primary objective. It doesn't take you away from your spiritual path. It doesn't make you lose your objectivity. So like this, we try to convert any desires that we have into non-binding. Any questions on vairagyam?
Like there was something you said about, something when you let go, you carry it with you. When you let go of something.
Yes. So I was talking about So there is often a misconception that renunciation is important, right? Renunciation of things, having austere practices, a lot of spiritual, many religions will also talk about abstinence and such, giving up something, right? But in our Shastra, it's actually very clear. There is no true renunciation, is always a falling away. It's not a giving up. It's like when you had you might have had a toy as a child you were very fond of, right? And if that toy got lost, you would have been very upset. And you played with it every day. But at some point, while growing up, someday you just forgot about it. If you come across it in your parents' house, it might bring up some fond memories and make you smile. But at some point, the toy lost its value for you. So that was a falling away. You didn't have to give it up. So it's like that. So we always say, don't try to suppress or give up something before you're ready for it. You can temporarily have some restraint to use it as a discipline. For example, you have a excessive sweet tooth. You really like sweets. If you try to give up all sweets immediately, like right now, I'm not going to have any other sweets, it might work for some people, but many people would probably struggle with it, right? And you would constantly be thinking about it also. So that's what I meant by it follows you, because by just giving it up, you're not really rid of it. If you're still thinking of it, it is still with you. But instead, you can exercise some discipline. You can say, I will only have, so if you're having sweets through the day, you can say, I will only have one sweet a day for now. And then from there, you can say, I will only have sweets twice a week, or so on. If you have 2 spoons of sugar or jaggery in your chai, you can say, I will cut it down to 1 spoon. So you can slowly try to reduce your binding and make it a non-binding desire. And at some point, it will fall away. So like that, I mostly gave up white sugar. So now I cannot stand it. But I still have jaggery and things like that. But after it falls away, it just loses all its value for you. That's what I meant. Is that clear?
Thank you.
Yes.
So I have one question. No, I recently have started fasting. Okay. It's just my question. I started fasting. Monday I have started because my mom is doing it. So I have started doing it. Full day in work, when we are in work, it's fine. You are busy. But towards end of the day, I crave. I want to eat. Then mom is saying that you should not do if you are craving. So how should I distinguish? Like, I want to do it. Okay. I want to practice fasting. But I'm craving at the end of the day and my head starts paining. So it is like detached. It's attachment to the food, or it's a mindset. I'm not able to.
It is the attachment, but it is also, like I said, some desires are legitimate, right? This desire for food is legitimate because we feel hunger and we need to, the body is saying it needs food. So first of all, maybe, like I said, if you want to really give up something, you can do it as a discipline. So maybe the reason your mom's asked you to do it is not sufficient motivation right now. Maybe you need as a logical thinking person, you might need some more things to motivate you. So you can ask, why am I actually fasting? Do you have a reason for it?
Okay.
I'm asking, do you have a reason for why fasting?
I don't have a reason actually.
Yeah.
Because
So
my mom is doing it.
Right. So your mom is correct in saying that if you're craving it, if you're, it's the same thing I was talking about. You cannot, it's not really fasting if you're constantly thinking about food, right? So it's not serving you in any way. So if you try to think, that's why even scriptures only advise fasting for a limited period of time. So because this body still needs to be treated well. So fasting can be anything according to scriptures. It can be skipping one meal. It can be fasting for one day or whatever. First of all, you need to have a sankalpa. What's the right translation for sankalpa? Invocation for why you're doing this. Right? So it could be because your mom's saying, it could be because a better one might be you're doing it for your own self-discipline. So then you can check instead of how many hours can I go, like, because people do intermittent fasting also. How many hours can I go without craving for food? Okay. Yeah, and only do it till such time you are able to do it. So otherwise, maybe, you've done the fasting long enough, stop it for now and take it up again. You can take it up. So if you did 16 hours intermittent fasting right now, maybe you can try 18 hours another time. But really, you have to make sure you're not impacting your health. So it's usually a good to ask, why are you fasting? Make sure it's something which actually is conducive for you.
I agree. I think so. This is missing because I'm doing it because my mom and sisters are doing it. So I'm just following that. And somewhere I wanted to start.
And it won't give you any benefit if you're feeling negative about it. If you say, because your intellect is not convinced why it's fasting, you don't have a good reason. So it won't really give you any benefit. It won't give you any chitta shuddhi. If you take up any discipline as a spiritual aspirant, you are looking for this chitta shuddhi.
But I don't have any negative. Like I want to do it from my, I'm doing it by myself. Nobody's forcing me to do it.
Right.
But I'm doing it. But yes,
I think
towards the end, I get tired, like maybe.
Right.
Or I'm just looking forward for dinner.
Right. But I think you should also inquire why. Because like we said in the very first class, no intelligent human being takes up any pursuit without a reason, right?
I agree. I think so. I need to do this learning myself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Spandana ji, also I have one feedback here. Just for the fasting part, I'm bringing it here. Most of the time, none of us know our anatomy. Isn't it that before going into anything like fasting, even though to cultivate detachment towards some craving, food, we should understand our anatomy, that does it work? What are we feeding? What are we not feeding? Everything, is it contributing in our anatomy? Because many times fasting turns out to be curse to our body than the boon, because our body is malnourished, or it shouldn't be kept hungry for that longer. Not everybody is
You're
accustomed to it.
absolutely right, Kyati. So in Bhagavad Gita later, like not just fasting, but any practices that we do that that could be considered spiritual practices. There's a lot of traditions which will do self-harm. They will whip themselves or have these heavy piercings and things like that, which are harming the body. Shastra in Bhagavad Gita, it calls all of these tamasic practices. And we will talk about the 3 gunas at some point. But these are considered dark practices. Any practice which is harming the body is considered dark practices, which is why I was advising Neelamji, I think it was, that you should also inquire why are we doing it, because I mean, for sure, right now we have a lot of rituals we do just because we see our parents doing it. But if you go back again, refer to the scriptures, the first part of the Vedas, the Karma Kandas, they will give you very specific directions on how to do everything, how to do a particular kind of fasting and everything. So either refer to those scriptures, none of us study the Karma Kandas anymore, or at least inquire for yourself, why are you doing a particular thing? Is it really the recommended way to do it? You know, when you even look at this Navratra fasting that a lot of people do, the scriptures obviously listed many things that you're not supposed to have. And of course, it didn't list the things that that are there today, right? So, but you see the Navratra thalis, it looks like an absolute feast, and a lot of people, I mean, I remember when I was at work, I used to often take the Navratra thali because it looked much more delicious than the regular thali, you know. So I'm not really denying myself anything, not practicing any kind of discipline if I'm doing it in such way, you know. So we have to inquire why are we doing the things we do.
How do you actually identify a tamasic ritual? Any criteria?
Okay, let's look
I
at,
have seen a lot of them, but I don't know which one would be.
so yeah, I guess we have 8 minutes. So instead of, I think we have time to take another section. So what I'll do is I will give a quick overview on what are the 3 gunas, because it keeps coming up again and again in various discussions that we do. So those of you who have done a teacher training or are familiar with yoga in some way might have heard of the 3 gunas. We will come to it again probably later, but basically Shastra tells us everything in this world that we perceive is made up of 3 gunas. This is sattva, rajas, and tamas. Okay, so tamas is darkness, inertia, heaviness, right? So, and rajas is activity, motion, and sattva is lightness, purity. Now, and so so we have to identify these by the qualities. So all these are there all the time in everything, but in different quantities. So we all have different portion of sattva, rajas, and tamas in our personality. And through the day, it will keep changing. By night, all of us will be more tamasic, and that is absolutely necessary, because without tamas, we will not be able to sleep. Without that heaviness, inertia, you will never be able to fall asleep. If you're having a restless night, moving around quite a bit, that means there is still too much rajas happening. If you're having very active dreams, that is also rajas. Without rajas, you will never get up and move into action. Rajas is the quality of desire. Without rajas, you will not have a desire to do anything, to go pursue things, achieve any goals in life, right? And sattva, without sattva, you will never be calm. You will never be able to be still, be peaceful and happy, be able to rest. So think of the same qualities when you think of food, right? So what would make you, what was your question exactly? Did you say tamasic food or tamasic practice?
Tamasic rituals, like you said, the piercings were.
Okay, so let's look at activity, right? What are the kind of activities which would make you feel heavy and make you feel more inertia? What if you
Yes.
watch? Yeah, go on.
Laziness, watch TV or
Yeah, so if you just sat in front of the TV for 6 hours on a Sunday, watching Netflix after Netflix, you would feel tamasic at some point, right? So that's how we identify it. So anything which is harmful is also tamasic. So anything which is harming your own body or harming someone else, that would be considered tamasic. So anything, so it's not just the things you do, but in what quantity you do it. So a good amount of sleep is necessary for everyone. But if you sleep excessively, you will feel more tamasic. If you take a 3-hour afternoon nap or even a 2-hour afternoon nap, you will wake up feeling even duller than when you slept. Correct? So that's tamasic. Again, something which agitates you excessively is rajasic. So if you're constantly, a lot of us actually have that tendency that we're constantly doing something. We don't ever just sit. We don't ever just sit in the sun, sit on the grass. We always want to be doing something, even if we're on the beach instead of just sitting and enjoying the waves. We want to be playing volleyball or frisball on the beach. We can't just sit still. So that is excessively rajasic. So we have to look at these qualities. What can cultivate sattva? You can cultivate sattva with meditation, having quiet time, not exposing yourself to too much media. Anything that we watch, like if you watch a violent action movie before sleeping, it will show up in your dreams, right? That's because you've exposed yourself to too much rajas and tamas. Instead, if you just listen to soothing music or do a light night meditation, you will sleep much better. Dimming the lights, everything, all these things. So that's the 3 gunas. And we can observe the quality in everything around us, in all the practices around us. Of course, for a spiritual aspirant, it's recommended that you try to increase the amount of sattva in your life, in everything that you do. I can send you a little list later from a book, which kind of little quiz to check your own percentage of sattva, rajas, and tamas, where you are at right now. And so the more sattva you manage to create in your life, the better it is for spiritual aspiration. Any questions?
It's clear. Thank you.
So had most of you heard of these gunas before, or it's new?
For me, it's new.
So
Yes, I heard.
I was also thinking another point to ask.
It's 9 o'clock.
Do most of you have a meditation practice or something like that keeps you calm through the day?
yes, morning at least 15 minutes. Otherwise, the day is bad.
Okay, great. So if any,
I perform meditation. I have recently started, frankly, I have just on this journey from first of this year. I am doing meditation, but I have realized that half of my meditation is planning for the day. Okay. When I'm sitting quietly, I'm planning my day, all my planning is done in the meditation time. I have started counting, breath counting. Mm-hmm. That is also, then I changed to speaking mantras, like Om and all, but end up doing planning more than calming myself is what I have realized
So it's consistency is the key in meditation. So at some point, if some of you are interested, I could take a very simple, not in these Saturday sessions, but another time I could take a very simple pranayama and meditation class. You can put your request on the group later if you would like, and I will plan for it.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can plan.
Yes, that would be good,
Yes,
Spandana.
I would.
Yes.
So, yeah, there is a lot of benefits, right? It's also just, actually, when we talk about, actually, let's do one thing. Let's do the ending prayers if anyone wants to leave, and then we can continue some more discussion. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamādaya Purnameva
Vasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti
Shanti.
Om Shri Guru
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat.
So let me just stop the recording.